Tell me what's going on.
I had my head cracked, and I had put another head on it. Got a head and got it on it. But now that we were trying to crank it back, it's shooting gas out the top of the. It don't have fuel injectors, but it's got the throttle body, 1994 model, and it's shooting to splash gas out the top of it real bad. It's getting too much gas. And I checked the throttle body, pulled it out. It seems to be working when it clicks and shoots gas out. But the other part, the regulator, it sits on top of it, if you know what I'm talking about. The little regulator that regulates the fuel, and it sits on top of it. But I don't know, can you check that regulator? It's got a vacuum. It's got two holes in the bottom of it, and one of them, I guess, sucks it in from the gas, the fuel, and one of them shoots it over to the throttle body thing in the air. But the throttle body thing, I hooked it up to 12 volts and clicked it, and it's clicking. And you see where it's kind of shooting out of gas a little bit, but I don't know nothing about the regulator here. It's just like when you're turning it over and trying to crank it, it's splashing so much gas in it, it's blowing it out. It's hitting the bottom of the thing out where it's closed, and it's shooting it back out. It's coming back out the top of it. It's throwing so much in it.
So it's pushing fuel out the intake. Is that correct?
No, not out the intake, out the top of the throttle body or whatever you call it. It's not carbureted, and you don't have fuel injectors, but it's throttle. I guess it's the throttle body is what you call them, man.
Yes, it is. It's the throttle body.
It's shooting fuel down in there and splashing it back up. Like it's shooting so much fuel in it somehow.
So if you turn the key on, engine off, do you see fuel either shooting out of the injectors or the regulator?
Well, when you turn the key on, this goes a little squirt right down in, like that right there. And then when you start to crank it, when you start to crank it, it's splashing, it's shooting fuel down in it, it's splashing out the top of it, like coming back up to the top of the carburetor. When your thing's closed up under the carburetor there.
Right, I gotcha. So I understand what you're saying, but here's the thing. So what I'm trying to get at is, do we have a fuel system problem? Is it just the fuel system? For example, something in this throttle body is leaking fuel into the engine that's way more than what it should be? Or when you crank it over, is it pushing the fuel out of the intake because it's timed incorrectly and it's pushing air out of the intake when it only should be sucking air in the intake? So to figure that out, what we would need to do is you could key on, engine off. If you just turn the key on, the pump will run. And just look down in the throttle body and see if you see any fuel leaking into the engine, into the throttle body.
I don't when I turn it on, I don't. You mean coming from the throttle body?
Anything, the regulator, the injectors, any sort of hose or line or nipple or anything that's got fuel, key on, engine off. When the system is pressurized with whatever it should be, 30, 40, 50, 60 PSI, does the fuel system leak down?
By checking the fuel pressure?
Well, you could do that. Yeah, you could do that also.
How can I check it without it? Don't have nothing on the fuel rail, nothing to check it with.
You would actually have to tap into the fuel pressure line where it goes up to the throttle body. You got to tee in adapters and hook your fuel pressure gauge up to it.
All right, so what if I don't have no leaks or nothing? So what you're saying is that something in the intake could be pushing it back when I'm trying to crank it. What if it was out of time? Would that do it?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. So it's either we got a malfunction with the fuel system, whether it be something's leaking or maybe the computer's spraying way too much fuel into the intake because of an injector issue, a PCM issue, or an input, or as it's spraying fuel into the engine like it should, the fuel system is functioning normally, but as the engine is rotating, it's pushing air out the intake, which is pushing fuel back out the intake of the throttle body. And if the second one is the case, then you have it timed incorrectly, and you got to retime the engine.
So it could be pushing it back into it, not taking the gas.
Correct. Because think about this: the intake should only suck air in. It's the intake. It shouldn't blow air out the intake. And if you did, this thing's got a timing built on it, doesn't it?
Well, see, I just put a new head on it, and we just timed it up. And I could be out there. I'm not going to say I'm wrong. Now, but here's the issue with mine on the timing. I'll tell you, I ain't got no marks on my balancer. And I ain't got no marks on my cam pulley neither. And there's no pointer on the bottom of it for the crank. For the crank, I ain't got no marks on my crank pulley. I ain't got no marks on my crank cover. So that's the best way we make sure it's in time. Go by the keyway.
Let me ask you a silly question. What is the compression at?
I don't know, but I can test it. I got a compression test. I can go out here and check it. if you want me to.
The key on engine off. I'd like to see if it's leaking any fuel, and I'd like to get a compression test, and just to see what the reading's at. And you're more than welcome to take a video of this fuel that's shooting out of the intake, and so I can see. But I still want you to run the other two tests.
You mean shooting off the throttle body,
Yeah.
where it's coming from?
Yeah.
You said key off. You mean when I turn the key on, you look for it and see if I'm leaking any fuel anymore, right?
Key on. Just turn the key on, and the pump will run.
Really? You're talking about from the pump from the gas tank?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It comes on, then it just comes on for a second, though, I think.
Right, but a second is long enough to pressurize the system.
And you want me to look in there and see if I see any leaks anywhere. I don't do that. And you want a compression test.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, back to the timing part. What do you suggest on that? Can I go by the keyways to line it up to get my timing in correctly? Should I go by the keyway on the crank since I don't have no marks or nothing like that? After I get to the top dead center, when I roll the piston up, number one piston all the way up, and I think that's on number one, should my keyway not be straight up and down at 12 o'clock?
No, I don't think the answer is no. I don't think you can go by the keyway. There should be marks. I don't know of any engine that was ever put together that doesn't have timing marks. There should be marks there for some reason.
I'm just saying there's not none on my crank cover or there's not none on my crank pulley. I'd have to tear all that down to get inside to the crank. I don't have all that off on the bottom.
Right. So, no, what you could do, is there marks
The camshaft,
on the sprocket?
I think on the back side of it, there's a little mark on one of the teeth. You know what I mean? But my sprocket has the little round hole. It's got the big hole in the center. It's got three holes. And it's got another little hole sitting up above the hole. If you remember those sprockets, do you remember those?
Yep.
Go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what you could do is, if you don't have a mark on the crankshaft, if you can't see one, you could put the number one piston at top dead center. Pull the spark plug out, put the piston at number one piston at top dead center, and then the engine is at TDC, and then you could line up the camshaft to the correct marks, if you can see the marks at the camshaft sprocket, and then put the timing belt on, and the engine should be lined up properly.
Mark, how should the camshaft be at that point if I get the top dead center? What can I go by on that sprocket that I got? It's got the little hole in it.
There should be two lines. There should be two, or I'm showing at least two, if not even three, in the little holes on the camshaft sprocket.
I'm on the camshaft sprocket. It's got two little points where your big bolt goes in the center.
Yep.
All right, well, on each, right there, it's got two little points sticking off of it, 90 degrees apart from each other on each side of that bolt. It's got a little straight arrow, not a mark, but that's just the way it's made. It's got two of them. And then I've got that little hole that's offset in the sprocket also, on the sprocket.
So that should be your marks right there.
So how should I line when I go by the arrows on it? If I go with them two pieces on the thing, see one's pointing like at 12 o'clock, one's pointing down at 6 o'clock where the bolt goes in it. On the mold of the sprocket, can I go by that?
Mm-hmm. I'm showing that one should go at the 12 o'clock mark, pointing directly up.
All right, let me go check your compression test and see if I can see any fuel, which I don't think I'm going to see no fuel. I need to get that, make sure my timing's right on that thing.
Yes, sir.
So, see, my top part don't have no timing cover on it, on this thing. You see what I'm saying? The bottom part's the bottom part's got the cover on the crank part, but it don't have no pointers or nothing like that, and the pulley don't have no marks on it. So
right.
I'm just having to make my own marks on it. I'm pulling it up top dead center and marking the pulley and marking the block right there, so I'll know where it's at.
Right.
So should I what should I do with that cam pulley? How should I line it to try to line it up with it? What will that cam look on the first two lobes?
Well, if the number one piston's at top dead center, the valves should be closed, so the lobes should not be pushing the valves open. They should be away from the valves.
The lobe should, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay, I'm looking forward to getting your pictures in. And if I need to talk to you again, just reply back online.
Yep. Yes, sir. Just reply back to our chat. It'll get routed right to me.
I appreciate it. I'll see what I can do.
Sounds good, my friend. I'll talk with you soon.
You're sending those over, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.